What he said and now what I said. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. You know these guys. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This gentleman here is Nick Wright. Big show for you today. The New York Giants say they've got a plan. Trust them. Kyler looks like a lock for the top spot in the NFL draft. Trust him. But we got to start with the marquee matchup on the NBA.
Trust
Talk it last night.
Well,
Trust me.
Maybe.
Easy, Nick.
Maybe.
The big game, Warriors and Rockets. Steph Curry called it a statement game. Warriors hadn't beaten the Rockets yet this season until last night, when they certainly made a statement. Everyone did. Boogie Cousins scored a season-high 27, tacked on 8 boards, 7 assists. Klay Thompson, he poured in 30 points. Dubs beating up on the Rockets, 106-104, snapping Houston's 9-game win streak. And they did it without Kevin Durant, still out with that sore ankle. Here's Boogie Cousins after his best game of the season.
I think it's coming. We've had stretches where, it's kind of flowing for everybody, but, this is a team that's been together for a while, and, they play a certain type of way, and they're used to playing a certain type of way. So for me to just come in and, I'm not expecting it to just this team to adjust to me. Obviously, I have to adjust to them. And, I have my opportunities, so all I can do is just try to take advantage of those opportunities. And, I think I had those opportunities tonight.
Nick, we were just talking yesterday about how much this team could really use the Boogie we all saw of old, not the Boogie we've seen this season. What did you make of Boogie's night? Listen,
the ultimate insurance policy, maybe the best insurance policy we've seen in recent NBA history, came through. They were without one of their true superstars, and Boogie was outstanding. It was his best game as a Warrior. He dominated that second unit because Iggy was in the starting lineup. They reshuffled the rotation a bit. Where the Warriors were particularly excellent to start the second and the fourth, that's where Boogie was particularly excellent. If you look at the plus-minus from the game, every starter for the Warriors was a negative except for Boogie. So that is a big departure from what had been the trend. The trend had been the exact opposite of that. When Steph's on the court, it's a positive. Klay, Draymond, but Boogie had been the negative. Now, I don't know that the Rockets are overly concerned with what happened last night. I think the Rockets know they had one of their worst shooting nights of the year. Their defense still actually did quite well, as they consistently do against the Golden State Warriors. And I don't know if the Rockets actually are upset that Boogie now feels even better about his playing time, better about his importance to the team, because I don't think Houston thinks this is a sustainable formula for the Warriors, particularly when Durant comes back. But credit to them. This was a game that if the Warriors lost, it's like you just said, hold on. They lost all 4 to the Rockets. They're only 2.5 back are the Rockets. Could the Rockets get the 1 seed again? That's now put to bed, so it's an important win. The Warriors avoid the season sweep, but I'm not going to overreact to it, but I will give Boogie credit because he has been the subject of a lot of criticism, and he had his best game since he was a New Orleans Pelican.
Yeah, this definitely was his best game. It was a good game for him because without KD in the lineup, and Boogie's played enough that he's able to get his wind, so they didn't have to have a restriction as far as his minutes. It was a great opportunity for him, a team that they were 0-3 going against them in the 3 previous meetings. We know that Houston has the only winning record against Golden State the last 2 years. Going into the game, they were 8-5, so they needed to see this from Boogie. I can understand what you're saying from Houston's standpoint, because going into the game without Kevin Durant, and one of the things you talked about yesterday, they got house money. Like, you can go into the playoffs because they do have a lot of confidence in playing against Golden State. But yesterday, with KD being out of the lineup, the Rockets had won 9 in a row. From the beginning, they didn't have the same type of intensity. And I think that, they were just looking ahead a little bit. The organization was celebrating. Yesterday, they awarded your friend Daryl Morey with a 5-year contract extension. He said he wants to be with the Rockets for life. So they got a lot of positive things going. The longest streak in the NBA yesterday. So against a world champion who was really focused, which I thought they were. They still have 4 All-Stars. Boogie's Cousins, his performance was the difference. And as you mentioned, it was the best game that he's played since he tore his Achilles with the Pelicans. It was good to see.
And go ahead, Jenna.
Well, Steph Curry called this a statement game before the game. So we really need to win this, especially without KD. Was it a statement win for the Warriors?
Listen, I think when you win a game against a team, the only team that's given you trouble on their home court, when they're the hottest team in basketball, without one of your best players, there's no way to discount that. That was a great win for the Warriors.
Right.
Yesterday, I think we got a little circular about is it statement? Is it? I don't want to parse the language. It was a great win for the Warriors and an important win for the Warriors. But I agree with C's point that the Rockets didn't seem to have the requisite intensity they have approached.
They were more
every
intense
game
when they went to Oracle without Harden. And they beat them without Harden. So this is the last meeting. I'm not saying that they didn't care about the game, but watching the game from the beginning, they didn't have that edge or intensity that we've seen. They ran off 9 straight wins. They were playing some great basketball, and they didn't shoot the basketball the way that we're used to them seeing. They still almost came back and won the game.
Right. They were down 13 with 4.5 minutes left, and then all of a sudden, it's a 1-point game after a Chris Paul and one with 10 seconds left. Steph hits a couple free throws. Harden intentionally misses free throw. Warriors win by 2 if people didn't see the very end of it. The other aspect is this. Whatever the Rockets have learned through their analytics department and through their 3 matchups with the Warriors this year, with Boogie, and then the series last year, about how to attack Golden State.
They actually have something concrete that they have a tremendous amount of confidence in.
And whatever they have not unveiled, 0% chance they were going to show their counter-punch in this game. They want to be able to present, and by the way, I'm sure it's the case for Golden State as well, that there is an element.
I don't know that. I don't know that because they're trying to get up to speed. And KD being down, the Warriors have shown to play well without KD.
Fair enough. The Warriors, maybe even if they would have wanted to or not wanted to because it wasn't their full roster.
Right.
Maybe
the Warriors will have that. I'll give that to them. Once you get into a series, they will have a counterpunch. But you make a lot of sense.
The point on the Rockets is they know to get to the NBA Finals, which they have not done since they had Hakeem Olajuwon and since well before Daryl Morey was there. That was back when Daryl Morey was at MIT, I think. They are going to have to go through Golden State. They also know they are going to have to present Golden State with something, whether it's blitzing a pick and roll differently, whether it's something on the offensive end that Golden State's going to say, oh, we have to adjust. There is no chance they're going to use that in the regular season in their final matchup rather than unveil it during the postseason. So I think the Rockets wanted to win, and if they don't go 11 of 41 from 3, maybe they do. But I think there were bigger things at play here. But that's not to take away Steph, Clay, and Boogie were outstanding and got them that win.
Jenny, you asked me earlier, do I still have concerns about the Warriors? And I do. Andre Iguodala, he's not the same athlete that he used to be. Combined between him and Draymond Green, they were 2 for 9. They were afraid to shoot the basketball, so that's still going to be a problem going forward, even though when they get KD. So big win for them, but still problems as far as how good they're going to be defensively and the lack of shooting, especially when you force Iggy to shoot and Draymond to shoot.
And then the question you always bring up, does this team still have the switch? Because it looked like the switch was on for Denver, off for Phoenix, and then back on again last night. We'll have to wait and see.
Last night, the defensive switch, I will give them credit. With Boogie playing a lot of minutes, the Warriors weren't great offensively last night, but defensively, they were flying around. They were great on the glass. They were approaching the game with the requisite punch and toughness needed. The Rockets, into the second quarter, had it. Into the fourth quarter, had it. The rest of the game, not so much.
And then we got to see if this is sustainable play by Boogie Cousins. All right, take a break. Coming up, did Kyler Murray solidify himself as the top pick? That is next on FS1. You can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM. We'll be right back.
Alarm, the willies, the heebie-jeebies, panic. There are dozens of words for fear, but just one for an exceptional home security company to stop fear at your front door. Simply Safe. Simply Safe is home security that knows it feels good to fear less. This is award-winning 24/7 protection that protects your home through it all, through blizzards, blackouts, and of course, burglars. Simply Safe has won awards from all the tech experts that count. Simply Safe has no contract, no hidden fees, and most importantly, no gotchas. And they always keep prices fair and honest. Thanks to Simply Safe, fear has no place in a place like home. Try Simply Safe with free shipping and free returns. You'll get a 60-day risk-free trial as well. Order now and have your home protected within a week. Go to simplysafe.com/FTF to get started today. That's simplysafe.com/FTF. Be sure to go there so they know we sent you. simplysafe.com/FTF. WTF.
Welcome back. We'll get to Kyler's pro day in a second, but first, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M on the fast break. J.J. Chandler finds Savion Flagg for the alley-oop slam.
Can't defend that one. Nice alley. It's tournament time now, Nick, man. We're going to see all the high flying.
And you're going to see things like Vanderbilt and college basketball highlights, which we haven't seen in quite some time this year.
Okay.
Jazz and Suns and Kelly Oubre gets the steal all the way, throwing down the reverse flush.
Kelly Oubre, go ahead, see.
He's reinvented himself there in Phoenix, man. Good athlete, a little temperamental. Had a nice playoff series a couple years ago, but he's playing some good basketball.
When I was in Texas and my son was a freshman on JV, he was a senior at a high school up the road, and we went to go see him play. Oh, my goodness. This guy's been a monster athlete.
What's JV, man?
Oh, well, listen, some people as freshmen play on the junior varsity instead of the varsity. You're not familiar with that.
I thought that was one of those words, man, you came up with from the word club.
This
guy.
Grizzlies and Hawks. Trae Young gets it ahead to John Collins for the alley-oop.
Man, John Collins has been one hell of a story this year.
I thought you and him were relatives or something. You was like just doing him a favor.
No, when I was talking about him earlier.
I mean, dude stays on the program.
Absolutely. And these more than half-court alley-oops are becoming par for the course.
Kyler Murray was front and center yesterday at Oklahoma's Pro Day. All eyes on what he would and could do after skipping drills at the Combine. By all accounts, he performed well, completing 61 of 67 passes. Murray didn't get measured, doing nothing to quiet those who said his measurements were inflated at the Combine, you know, because your height is obviously up for interpretation. Our own Joel Klatt was there, said Kyler has nothing to worry about.
He threw the ball so well today. It was effortless. He threw it as well as Baker did last year or better at times. He showed a quick release, great RPMs on the ball, threw it really well down the field. Firmly believe Arizona's going to take Kyler. He was terrific today. Effortless thrower of the football.
CC, do you think Kyler solidified himself as the top pick in the draft after his pro day?
I think that when people just stop listening to all the noise and you just look at the film and you start to analyze him just as a prospect, and you don't look at the height and everything. You look at where does the ball go. You start to understand the offensive scheme. You talk to the coaching staff, so you start to figure out, okay, what were you trying to do here? And then you start to understand, like, okay, this is what he had to do in this offense. And, man, he can flat throw the football. Like, he's very athletic, and he rushed for 1,000 yards and everything, but he didn't need to. Like, he is not Lamar Jackson. And I think the more we study him, the more information you get out there. Even though people say they watch college football, they like to put guys, if they look a certain way, into a certain bucket. Like, he can only do this. And that's why his pro day was situated was yesterday. He didn't make any throws on the move, on the run, because he knows people think that. So he tried to work on the things people think that he can't do. As a smaller quarterback, I love the fact that he went out and hired one of the great small quarterbacks in the NFL history in Jim Zorn, who was a lefty. He trained him and got him ready for his pro day and everything. So Jim's a great guy, fundamentally very, very sound, and he had him ready to perform yesterday, and you could see that he's just trying to remove some of the myths that people think. But when you stop looking at height and you just look at him as a prospect and you see the football and how he can direct the football, he can throw it high, he can throw it low, he can throw it with velocity, like he can put a touch on it. Those are all the things that typically, when you are a dual threat quarterback or an athletic quarterback, those words they put with quarterbacks like Kyler, they don't have that ability to be able to throw. They can either throw the ball long and throw it hard, but they don't have that ability to be able to vary the throws, which Kyler showed yesterday. So great day for him. And whatever people thought about him when the day began, through the workout, that didn't change. So if they thought that, man, he's the best prospect in the draft, the ¡1 quarterback, he solidified that. If they thought he was #2, he solidified that yesterday.
He 100% did not hurt himself. And I don't know how much I think it's hard in pro days to help yourself drastically because it is such a controlled environment. When you do really well, people are like, well, you're supposed to do really well.
Your receivers, your environment.
Exactly right. But he to my eye, made no errors. From the people watching, I mean, he's 61 of 67. One of those is a drop. And then he had 3 misses to the deep right side of the field. But, I mean, we're talking about completed over 90% of these passes and with one drop baked in there.
Right, and there's an excuse for that, deep to the right side of the field, especially for young quarterbacks, because they're throwing to the middle. They're not used to it with the hash marks that you have typically in the NFL. They're tighter to the middle of the field compared to college hash mark. The ball for a right-handed quarterback is spinning more to the right. So when they miss long and out of bounds. But that's something that's easily corrected.
But I thought it was very smart that he, as you mentioned, didn't do anything on the run. It was all in the pocket. It was drop back, maybe 1 step to your left, 1 step to your right, and throw. And C is totally correct that if I could get over the height and just watch it.
Yes.
If I was watching him there with no defenders around or offensive linemen around him, that was my first time watching him. Because you can't really tell how tall he is in these clips because there's no one around him. I'd look at him and say, my goodness. I mean, the ball comes out quick. It comes out, like you said, with velocity. He can clearly hit every quadrant of the field. I have a hard time getting over the height. And
that's okay.
When I've got Haskins, who I think can throw the ball maybe as well, if not a little bit better, obviously doesn't have the athleticism, I'm going to go with the guy who's 4.5 inches taller. But what he did yesterday was he absolutely, if you already liked him, you love him. And what is amazing to me about this whole process, Jenna, is at the week 4 mark of last college football season, Baker Mayfield was nowhere considered the first overall pick. At the week 4 mark of this college football season, question was, is he going to play baseball? And for the change to be that drastic and that quick in consecutive drafts potentially, to me is remarkable based on 2 guys from the same college with the same coach and what they both might end up going number 1.
And what's the thing we loved so much about Baker Mayfield coming out last year? The kid was a winner. Say what you will about what he did, some of the antics and all of it. He was an absolute winner at every level. And I think sometimes that gets lost with Kyler Murray and his height and his measurements and all of it. The kid doesn't lose. He never lost a game in high school as a starting quarterback.
Man, say that again.
He has never lost a game as a high school starting
in the state
quarterback.
of Texas. I mean, there are 5 people, but look, there are some states that play football in high school that are different. California, Texas, Florida, Georgia. Like, the football is just totally different in them states. Now, there's others I can include, but in that state, at a big-time high school, didn't lose a game. 42-0 state champions. And we typically, all these other quarterbacks, the white ones, we never miss that. Oh, man, he's a winner. We never miss that. But we have not heard, Jenna, we have not heard about his resume. He said he thought that he was the greatest high school player in the history of the great state of Texas.
And I don't mean to reference my time in Texas twice in one segment, but I was there when he was in high school. So I had just moved to Texas when he was a senior in high school, and then shortly there, or maybe he was a junior, because shortly thereafter he went to Texas A&M, which is obviously the second most prominent college in Texas. This kid was legendary. This kid, his clips, the way we showed Zion clips last year when he was in high school, that's what we talked about in the Texas high school football communities down there. And when I watched him then, I thought, man, this guy's going to be an amazing college quarterback, and I put the ceiling on him there. And I thought he'd go play baseball. And throughout most of this year, I thought he was going to go play baseball. He is now probably going to be the #1 pick of the draft. And I'm rooting for him. He will be the first person, if he's successful, ever successful at a high level in this league at that height. But you can't deny what he can do with his right arm. You can't deny the accuracy and the strength on the football and the velocity. And I liked how Joel Klatt put it, the RPMs, the way the ball spins. Like, all of that, you don't have to be a football expert to say, okay, this guy can do that really well. Can he survive the physicality of the NFL? That's the only question mark on it.
He may not be a loud guy, but he's confident. To consider yourself the best high school quarterback in the state of Texas, you want that kind of confidence when you're coming.
Absolutely.
All right, take a break. Coming up, would the Lakers be in the playoffs if LeBron never got hurt? Discuss that next on First Things First.
This Saturday night, don't miss the biggest pay-per-view fight of the year. 2 of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world put their perfect records on the line. Errol Spence Jr. takes on Mikey Garcia for the World Welterweight Championship live from AT&T Stadium. Spence Jr. versus Garcia, Saturday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, live on pay-per-view. Order now.
The Big East Tournament quarterfinals tip off today with Providence taking on top-seeded Villanova, followed by Creighton battling Xavier. The action begins at noon Eastern on FS1 and on the Fox Sports app.
Okay, let's go, Nova. I can't go to you today because I got to go get my teeth fixed with Jenna's guy.
My dentist.
They're going to fix up my teeth. But
Okay.
Nova, I'm there tomorrow.
So they better win tonight. Or this afternoon, pardon me.
Let's go.
Never too much information out of
Jay
Cris
Wright,
Carter.
I'm available for dinner.
Time for us to go viral. Giants fans still in shock after the team traded away three-time Pro Bowler Odell Beckham to the Browns. One Giants fan in particular was very upset about the news. Take a listen.
I don't know why, because either way, he's good, but those people are dumb.
Who's dumb?
That whoever ran the NFL that traded him.
Traded who?
Odell Beckham. He is the only one that's good on the team. Everyone else sucks, and now we're gonna be even worse.
Thank
Not
you.
Not even gonna win one game the whole season.
Perfect.
Love it.
Well, sweetie,
Speak
I
the
love
truth.
your intensity, but they do have a running back. He is really, really good. But, man, I'm telling you, there is a lot of Odell Beckham, number 13, female jerseys in New York City. That dude sold some merchandise. People love him in New York.
And right now, you can probably get them in a discount, dirt cheap price. Now, I wonder if her assessment, which is probably a little on the harsh side, is closer to reality than the GM Dave Gettleman's assessment, which is we can contend while we rebuild. I wonder at the end of the season, are we going to think the young lady sitting there saying everyone stinks, we're not going to win a game?
Did
What's
you
going to be
speak
closer
to a bunch
more?
of Giants fans yesterday? Most of them felt the exact same way she did.
Yes.
Big upset here in New York City from
It's a popular guy, man. It's amazing.
He's dumb. Whoever runs the
Whoever
NFL.
runs the NFL, they're dumbos.
That guy.
Doofuses.
All right, time for stories to start your morning. This morning, Earl Thomas finally found a home, and it's not with the Cowboys, but it is with the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore signed the safety to a 4-year, $55 million deal, $32 million guaranteed. See, how much better did the Ravens defense just get by signing Earl Thomas?
Well, I have a tremendous amount of faith in their defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale.
Yeah.
Man, he runs a great defense. They lost a few players, but, man, Earl is a baller, man. He is a football player, and his mindset and psyche fits in well in Baltimore and how they do things. They're a defensive organization, very, very physical, a lot like when he had success in Seattle there. He's one of my favorite players to watch. I just hope he can stay injury-free. He's had a couple bad ones the last couple years.
I think a healthy Earl Thomas is still the best in the league at his position. And so if he's healthy, they just got better. I know they lost Eric Weddle, but he's a better player right now than Eric Weddle.
Absolutely.
Now, the Ravens lost 3 starters from their front 7, but they've retained everyone on the back end except for Weddle, and I think they had an upgrade there. This was one of the 2 best defenses in football with a healthy Earl Thomas. They should be in contention for at least in the top 5 once again next season.
All right, moving on. Teddy Bridgewater has an interesting decision to make. The 26-year-old quarterback is reportedly weighing staying with the Saints as the heir apparent to Drew Brees or signing with Miami and competing for the starting Dolphins job with Ryan Tannehill. Teddy met with the Dolphins yesterday. Nick, what do you think Teddy Bridgewater should do?
If he has to compete with Tannehill, I think I'd strongly consider staying in New Orleans one more year. If Miami's saying, if you sign with us, we're cutting Tannehill and it's your job, then I think you've got to go where the starting job is guaranteed. But when you have a chance of having, even if you win the job, if you have a rough stretch, people saying go back to Tannehill, I wouldn't want to go to get in a quarterback competition with a guy who's making the type of money Tannehill is. But if they are going to cut him, then you go with the starting job. If not, I'd be content sitting behind Brees one more year.
Well, one of the things you loved about Drew Brees, Jenna, was that he said, hey, look, Cris, I'm in as good a shape as any quarterback. I just don't brag about it. I got a staff of people. I eat all the right things. So we don't know how long Drew Brees is going to play.
Year.
But the ability to have your own franchise, and if it happened to be in your backyard like Miami, Teddy Bridgewater's from Miami. He went to high school, Miami Northwestern, led them to state championships. So the ability to be able to play in front of your family, have your own team. Jim Caldwell is the assistant head coach. Greer, the general manager, both of these African-American. Head coach and African-American. It would be the first time that we have seen that combination. African-American, head coach, general manager, and quarterback combination in the NFL. We're going into our 100th year celebrating football. So that would be a very, very great combination to have.
Really cool story.
All right, moving on.
I just realized that. It was hard for me to spit that
I got
one out.
you. I saw you was coming out on the fly.
It worked, though. It all got out. The Blake Bortles era in Jacksonville has come to an end. The Jaguars released their former 3rd overall pick after signing Nick Foles this offseason. Jacksonville was 24-49 in games that Blake Bortles started. CC, will we see Bortles under center again in this league?
Man, I know this league, and they have a ugly history of giving guys who can't play an opportunity. So I would be naive to think that his career is over with. No, he's got a few more opportunities in it. Let's let Blaine Gabbert. Hadn't he been a starter a couple times, different places? San Francisco, Tennessee. Yes, Blake Bortles, he will get the opportunity to play somewhere else.
Jenna, how tall is Blake Bortles?
Blake is 6'5".
6'5". So, I mean, Denver needs a backup, right? I mean,
he's not tall enough for them,
almost tall enough. He's not tall enough to be the starter for John Elway.
No.
But he might be tall enough to be the backup, man. Go in there. That is true. Touche, Jenna Wolfe. Jenna Wolfe getting a little spicy political commentary. Well done. You've hung out with me too much.
3 points.
Listen, he's not going to be a starter anywhere. And I think it's going to be harder for him to just ease into a backup spot because he has become, fairly or unfairly, a punchline in a lot of cities. But do I think he's going to be out of football next year? No. He'll be someone's backup quarterback.
There's always a coach out there, Jenna, that thinks, you know something, let me have this kid. He's really talented. I liked him coming out of college. He went to Jacksonville. They ruined him. I can resurrect his career.
Real quick, I'm sorry. What about a system fit, see? Where do they have a quarterback that's big, can run, and can't throw? Buffalo. He's the perfect backup to Josh Allen. Josh Allen comes out, got the same exact offense. That's an option as well. So maybe Buffalo works for him. Yeah.
Antonio Brown was officially introduced to the Raiders faithful yesterday. The marriage between AB and John Gruden will certainly be an interesting one to watch. Spicy versus spicy. The 7-time Pro Bowler addressed the media for the first time since this was announced, and he can't wait to dive into Gruden's offensive system.
I'm just here as a sponge to soak up every information Coach got, to be as successful I can be and to help the team take it to a new level. So I'm just excited being in the same buildings with guys who've been great from the past, but I'm excited to be here and help things go to another level as far as the winning environment. My goal really is to catch Jerry Rice. I'm playing with a guy like Coach Gruden. Obviously, he knows what it takes to keep me upright and fresh and to keep me out there for a long time. So, you know, securing this challenge is a challenge every year to prove my love for the game, you know, and I'm just taking it 1 year at a time.
One of the benefits we have of working with a guy like Nick Wright is he crunches numbers as things come out. So Antonio Brown mentioned Jerry Rice, and guess what Nick said while it happened?
Well, so listen, he said he wants to catch Jerry Rice.
Right.
Jerry Rice is at 22,800-ish yards.
Of course you know that.
Antonio Brown's at 11,200-ish, so that's easy math. If he doubles his production, if he has the career he's had, has the exact same, again, he'll be like 400 short. He'll be a good month of football away, and that's the yards, touchdowns. He's, I think, about 130 short, which is, so if he has the rest of his career, the exact number of touchdowns you had in the entirety of your career, he'll almost catch Jerry.
So pretty likely.
So he's right there.
Yeah, I mean, he's right there.
But that's not fair to be like, he can have a great tenure in Oakland and never touch Jerry Rice's number.
Well, then what is going to be the barometer? Like, what's going to be considered a success for Antonio Brown? I mean, he already passed the first test. He shaved that mustache, re-dyed it its natural color, and got rid of some of the things on top. But tell me what would be considered a success for AB in Oakland?
Well, Jenna, he's off to a great start. I know you hate when people change teams and then they get an opportunity. I'm sitting there waiting for them, and then they put off that first impression. You're like, I don't like it. Has nothing to do with can they play. They lose the first press conference. What he did was he sat down there. He did. He fixed his mustache. He had his hair in a hairstyle that was presentable. And he talked with the people who decided to extend this contract, and he talked about, I'm going to take this 1 year at a time, because he wants to show them that he really loves the game. And before we had this big blow-up, I told Nick for the longest time, this is one of the hardest working guys. This guy spends an amazing amount of money on his body. Like, he is a workout fool. He gets up in the morning loving to work out. And those types of guys, especially as a wide receiver, because he doesn't get into a lot of big collisions, he can play for a long time. So for me, he had the right attitude. It started with him and John Gruden sitting down in John Gruden's office, and John Gruden had every pass play that he had ever participated in with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they went through that film, watching it. So John Gruden knows the type of player that he's getting. But he told him, you're good at certain areas, but there's some areas you're not good at. And those are the areas I'm going to push you. And that's one thing with Gruden. Man, you will get tired of him every day being at. He coaches pro like they coach in college. And we haven't seen pros that really respond that way. So AB is a workout warrior. I believe it is a good fit. I'm glad they had Mike Mayock there because I believe that they're going to get some talented players there in Oakland. I believe the story is going to change there in Oakland, and it starts with a relationship. AB humbling himself, saying, that guy right there is getting ready to get me to football. And if you want to play a long time, AB, sometimes it's not about your ability at the end. It's about your leadership. Is he going to be the face of the Oakland Raiders when they go to Vegas? So that's what he's proven in these first couple intros to him. So he's off to a great start. He's not a dumb guy. He knows how to market himself. Let's get back to the football part because that's the part. He is a master. He's the best in the NFL currently at what we had. 6 straight seasons, 100 catches, 6 straight seasons, 1,200 yards. You wouldn't want anything else from a wide receiver. So I like the way he got it started, the relationship there with the media, the coaching staff. Let's get back. He went out to the field, worked out with Carr. This is who this guy is.
And narratives in the NFL about teams or players can turn on a dime. I remember when the Eagles and Giants were both had an open head coaching position. And the Giants hired Ben McAdoo, and the Eagles hired Doug Peterson.
Both of them up-and-coming offensive coordinators.
Exactly right. And 1 year in, Eagles fans were angry. Why did we go with Peterson? We could have had McAdoo. And a year later, McAdoo is fired, and Doug Peterson is a Super Bowl champion. And now McAdoo, it's not like he is the next hot name people are trying to hire for a head coach. And Doug Peterson seemingly as much job security as anybody this side of Bill Belichick. Narratives with Antonio Brown can change. Like, we can forget what has been a really, I think, uncomfortable and unfortunate, call it 6 to 18 months, if he produces the way he always has. The Raiders win some games. He doesn't have the type of off-field nonsense that was associated with him in Pittsburgh. And if at the same time Pittsburgh struggles this year, then all of a sudden the narrative's like, oh, wait. Maybe it was the quarterback more, whether it's accurate or not. My point is, sometimes the facts stop really mattering, and it's the story that gets told. I know Antonio Brown will produce. I know Antonio Brown is going to work hard because, as you said, and it is like the most common refrain in the NFL, whether people like AB or not. Everyone says, like, you
can't deny that.
It's like it's part of his name. Hardest worker in the NFL, Antonio Brown. And when it comes to stories and narratives, his story and narrative also is a great one for the totality of his life, coming from being homeless, where the circumstances, if he has a redemption act. We love a redemption plot line. We love to build you up, see you fall, and then build you back up again. And so I think he is a great player. And I obviously think the Raiders got an absolute steal. Now, who's going to be his quarterback? What will Gruden show an ability to produce a high-level offense, which he's done very rarely in his coaching career? Those are fair questions, but that was a great start.
Right, and you talking about storylines. It's a great storyline that the Raiders would be back as being an elite team. It's a great storyline that John Gruden goes into the booth, comes back. It's a great storyline Mike Mayock coming out of television, talking about draft picks, talking about NFL, going on to run an NFL team. So they have more people. I know on this show we've been critical of them. I've been critical of them because they're just the facts. But that's a good story waiting to happen. Yesterday was a good day.
And the best way to change the narrative is for him to get it on that field and
just win games.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
What did
Moving on.
Say? Just win, baby?
By all accounts, LeBron's first season in L.A. has not gone well. You could pick your reason why. Finger pointing, trade rumors, no playoffs, which is all but a certainty at this point. But truth be told, had it not been for a small wet spot on the floor, the one LeBron slipped on, tore his groin, and missed over a month of action, this Laker team was on track to make the playoffs. Yesterday, LeBron met with the media and said this season could have been very different.
It's easy to say, well, if, you know, you can't do that. You know, for me, I can't do that. I'll be cheating myself. Obviously, I know, you know, how I was leading this team going into December 25th, and how I was approaching the ball club was right on track. How I do every single year, and especially I was even more patient with the young guys. And unfortunately, one slip and fall here, a tear of the groin, slap down on our other mastermind and Rajon Rondo on his hand. Now we got a torn groin and a broken hand, and both of them are out for 10.5 weeks combined. So it definitely it was sucked at that point in time of our season.
All right, let's play a little hindsight, CeCe. You think the Lakers would have made the playoffs if it weren't for LeBron's injury?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think they would have made the playoff. I think it's fair to say, I don't think it's an excuse, but it's not only LeBron, but the Rondo thing. You can't have both of those guys out of the organization because there are a lot of things that not on the stat sheet, but the overall leadership and what these younger players need, someone to stabilize the ship. You can't have both of them injured because the effect from a leadership standpoint, when you get injured in sports, you lose a lot of your leadership. Like Kevin Durant, he couldn't lead last night. Professional athletes do not listen to guys that are hurt. Like, you lose that feel. We saw that with Nick Foles. Man, what was Carson Wentz doing? Cheering. Like, you lose your leadership because you're not here to help us. And it's amazing. It's like you're on a different team when you're hurt compared to when you're in the flow of things, even if you're injured and still playing. So, yes, I think it's fair to say Christmas night, they beat Golden State. I mean, tremendous win. LeBron goes down.
And nobody, sorry to interrupt, just real quick. On Christmas night, that was when the Lakers were still, if you fall down, stay down till your teammates get there to pick you up. Nobody thought the veterans and the young players were disconnected. Like, LeBron said it there. He said, now maybe it's a little revisionist history, but he said, I thought I was connecting with the young guys. I thought, and then he was gone. They lost. The Anthony Davis thing happened. He, I think, then failed to reconnect with the young guys, and it all went askew. But on Christmas night, nobody thought. Even Chris Mannix had come around.
Where were they? They were in fourth place in the West?
They were in fourth place in the West, and I know it was real tight, fourth to eighth. But they were there. But they were right there, and they were whooping the Warriors.
But then after that, and I like the fact, too, LeBron, he's starting to get a little more insight. He slipped a couple of times. I'm going to say slipped because he didn't say I got injured. He said I tore my groin. Steph strained his groin, missed 11 games. LeBron tore his groin. He hadn't been saying that. He said he hurt his groin, but when you tear your groin, you could see when he came back, he was not at the weight that we saw him on Christmas night. You could see he didn't have the cardio, didn't have the wind, didn't have the stamina. When he went to the button to push it, Jenna, you was like, oh man, he doesn't have it. He didn't have LeBron activation mode. So all those things are accurate. But if LeBron James is healthy, the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be in the playoffs. Now, if he just has his normal season, we're going to give him 5 or 6 games where he can take off for load management, all those types of things. But if he doesn't miss those 18 games, the Lakers are going to be in the playoffs next.
And listen, all of that's true. And, of course, that was the key moment. Now, was it salvageable when he came back? Maybe. If Anthony Davis never demands a trade and the team stays more connected, is it salvageable despite the injury? Yeah, probably. If Luke Walton does a better job while LeBron's out, is it salvageable? Yeah, I think it is. If they don't have, you have a list in front of you of awful losses.
Awful.
During the injury and post-injury. Yeah, it's probably, but yeah, of course, the key moment's the injury. But here's the thing. You guys know this about me, sports or otherwise, I'm a history buff. This is how the NBA works. It is moments in time that are fork in the road. For LeBron, Skip brings up all the time, and he's not wrong in some regard. The Ray Allen shot. If Ray Allen misses that shot, LeBron doesn't have a chance to go 37-12 in Game 7, and the Heat blueprint is considered a failure. On the flip side, the game we were at, after the Cavs won their first title, if Kyle Korver hits his shot, Zach Lowe just wrote a whole story about this, the great NBA Finals we missed out on because Kyrie was playing at his best level. LeBron's like, what would the narrative have been if Korver makes that shot? If the Cavs beat the Warriors with Durant, then you're on my side on the GOAT
And my guy, MJ, I was there for a bunch of them. There was a bunch of times he passed to guys wide open, and they knocked down shots. That being Steve Kerr, that being John Paxson, B.J. Armstrong, Hodges, man, they knocked down shots. So those were shots, too, that changed the narrative.
We're in New York City. How differently do people remember Patrick Ewing if John Stark's shot in Game 6 isn't blocked by Hakeem? and they win that title? How differently do we remember Chris Webber and those Kings teams if Peja does an airball to 3 in the corner in Game 7 of the 0-2 Western Conference Finals? Like, this is what basketball is. It is moments in time that we build narratives around one, I don't want to say random, but one incident. And LeBron's incident was he slipped on the floor and tore his groin. And now it's, wow, you missed the playoffs in your prime? Are you going to get a free agent? How good of a leader are you? Or should the Lakers trade you?
Yes.
Hey, listen, it's not unfair.
Right.
That is how basketball works. That's how, by the way, football, like what is the narrative on those Bills teams? If Norwood makes the first field goal, field goal in the first Super Bowl. Like, this is just how sports are.
So existential of you this
morning. Well, no,
morning.
but I mean, that's just how it is. Like, I don't, nobody should pity
Sliding
LeBron
doors.
or the Lakers. Like,
You're right.
That's what happens. And
narratives are created by small, tiny things or decisions or moments.
And last point, we never think about the things that didn't happen. How many times in LeBron's career did he avoid the wet spot? How many times could he have torn his groin? Were those have been championship seasons?
Right.
This one could be a championship season either way. So, like, that's just what happens. Now, next year, don't slip on the damn wet spot. Make the playoffs. See what happens.
Moral of the story, keep things dry.
What are you laughing about, see?
Coming up, was the Warriors win over the Rockets a statement victory? That is ahead. This is First Things First. Back here, First Things First, former NFL general manager Mike Tannenbaum joins the show.
Hey, Mike, good to see you.
What a beginning there.
Yeah. I mean, every day.
That's my guy.
Boy, was it.
He actually threw coffee on me.
Hey, man.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Hey.
Watch it.
Big day in New York City. Both New York teams had a lot going on in NFL free agency. So let's start with the Giants. Tough day for Giants fans. Anytime you realize your team is in rebuild mode, you have to be concerned. Big Blue trading away Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns. Their offense now Saquon Barkley, a 38-year-old quarterback, and some other players. Many are now questioning the front office, which also let Landon Collins walk. But GM Dave Gettleman said Giants have a plan and, quote, this is part of it. Mike, you buying that the Giants have a plan after dealing Odell?
Absolutely. You know, we got to give this a grade of incomplete. You know, free agency is 24 hours old. It started a year ago. You know, they drafted Saquon Barkley, obviously a tremendous talent. And they, you know, knowing Dave and knowing his approach, offensive line. So sign Nate Solder, draft Will Hernandez in the second round. And now they have ammunition if they want to go up and get a quarterback, you know, in this year's draft. Obviously, the safety is a concern, but they go out, they sign Antoine Bethea, and Julius Peppers is part of the trade as well.
Peppers. They bring in Jabril Peppers to replace Landon Collins. I'm okay with giving the Odell trade an incomplete. Just like I was when they traded away Khalil Mack, I didn't like the trade, but you can't judge it until you see what they get back for him.
Right.
That's right.
I don't think, though, it's unfair to say the approach in year one was to come in year one in the introductory press conference, say it's not torch the whole place and bring in a new 53, and now you got about a dozen guys left from when you got there, and you are starting the process of bringing in essentially a new 53 plus Eli Manning and Zach Diassi, your long snapper, that it is a divergence from where they thought they were initially.
Yes. There definitely is different than what they thought. But my question to you is, because you've been part of a couple different organizations helping cultivate the culture and bring talent in there, how hard is it for like someone in Gettleman's position? Because I remember, man, I've been on TV a long time. A lot of times my encounters with people are not necessarily great. Tannenbaum, we got some mutual friends, but I had said something on TV one time, and he was like, I didn't agree with that. He called my phone afterwards, and I was like, man, I really respect that. But how hard is it to convey what your message is and what you're trying to do? Because you can't tell the public everything, but you have to be able to tell them something. You're more comfortable with those message points. Explain that part to us.
No, Chris, that's a great point. As a former player, I think you'll appreciate this. When you're Dave Gettleman and you're dealing with Eli Manning, your audience is the locker room, because they're going to say, hey, this is a guy that's a championship quarterback in New York City, and how they treat him is really important, because all the other players are going to say, how you treat Eli, hey, that's how they could treat me one day. So, Nick, going back to your point, yeah, maybe they didn't get the quarterback a year ago, but Dave Gettleman and Pat Shurmur weren't hired on a one-year deal. So, to me, they got Barkley. They're starting the offensive line. Look, they lost a generational talent in Beckham. We all know that. But, you know, we're sitting here. It's, you know, free agency is less than 24 hours old. You know, let's see where we are after the draft.
Gettleman said that you could win. Well, I mean, he was asked a million different ways, but that, yeah, this team could still win while they're in this sort of rebuilding the roster mode. How, and is that possible?
Yeah, I think the key in today's football is you have to win for today and develop for tomorrow, because if you're just developing for tomorrow, you could look in Cleveland, right? They've developed for a lot of new head coaches and a lot of new GMs. So I think what Dave's talking about there is you go back to some of those great Carolina Panther teams that he was a part of.
Yes.
Strong defense, strong front seven, strong offensive line. So again, going back to last year, adding Solder, drafting Hernandez, I think that's what Dave's talking about.
Right. In your association with the league, given that right now, man, everyone is about, as part of Saturday football in college, is starting to come to the NFL. How effective? Because I always say you're going to have a couple organizations going to be able to play power football, because that's just what they're going to do. Either the quarterback's not going to be able to throw, or they just don't have the weapons to be able to do it. In today's NFL, what Gettleman is trying to do, trying to duplicate what they did in Carolina, how effective, or do you think is that the most effective way to build a football team when now we're basically throwing it 65 to 70% of the time?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Obviously, the sport's involved, but, you can look up north at, Coach Belichick and the way they've won. They've won a lot of different ways. A couple of years, when they've had prolific, offenses with, Randy Moss, and
Yes.
they've put a lot of points up. And other times, like you can look at the team this year, you wouldn't say that was a prolific
Very
offense.
good point. Yes.
Right, but they were effective. So I think that's what good coaching and good organizations are, is like, how do we have a chance to win this year and keep building? So your point's fair, Chris. What plays on Saturday is what's going to come out and we're going to play with. And you do have to evolve, but you can still have those core principles.
All right, so you bring up Coach Belichick. I am very confident, without knowing Bill Belichick personally, that Bill Belichick, what he would be doing this week once he gets off the beach, wherever he's vacationing while
a well-deserved break.
Absolutely. Yeah. While everyone's overspending in free agency, is he would call up Eli Manning and he would say, we really appreciate you and your championships, and we want to keep you here. We've said we want to keep you here for another year, but I need you to take a salary reduction. There is not a market available for Eli Manning this year to make $17 million, which is what the Giants are going to pay him in bonus and salary. We need to free up that space. How do you have that conversation if you're Dave Gettleman? And would you have that conversation of, hey, you're going to become the highest paid player in the history of the sport this year. You're going to pass your brother. Manning brothers done well for themselves. But we need you to take a pay cut. Or do you think he's untouchable within the organization?
Nick, one of Coach Belichick's superpowers is before he went on the beach 6 months ago, he was playing for his replacement. So you could look at the left tackle situation in New England. Nate Solder leaves. They bring in Trent Brown.
Yeah.
They draft Isaiah Wynn from the University of Georgia a year ago. He's going to be their new left tackle. So that replacement's been in the building for a year. Garoppolo's a great example. They draft him. So if they have to have that conversation with Tom Brady, they're prepared. The question is, Kyle Lauletta, a fourth-round pick out of Richmond last year, can he replace, Eli Manning? Answer is probably not at this point. So when you have those hard conversations, that preparation takes 6 months to a year beforehand.
So you're saying you can't, you think it's harder to, I just want to make sure I understand, harder to ask him to take a pay cut when he knows if I say no, you're not cutting me.
That's right. That's exactly right. Like, you have to plan for that conversation not to go great. I've had a lot of those in my career. Some have gone well, some haven't. But you want to be prepared for that player to walk. And more importantly, what's the plan when he walks out the door? And sometimes that answer takes about 12 months to get ready for.
All right, Mike, stick around. Coming up is Kyler Murray, the guaranteed #1 overall pick. That's next on First Things First. Back here with Mike Tannenbaum. It's time for your Subway choice moment. Kyler Murray was front and center yesterday at Oklahoma's Pro Day. All eyes on what he would and could do after skipping drills at the Combine. By all accounts, he performed well, completing 61 of 67 passes. Our own Joel Klatt was there, and he said Kyler has nothing to worry about.
He threw the ball so well today. It was effortless. He threw it as well as Baker did last year, or better at times. He showed a quick release, great RPMs on the ball, threw it really well down the field. Firmly believe Arizona's going to take Kyler. He was terrific today. Effortless thrower of the football.
Mike, we were talking earlier about how quickly the narrative changes sometimes when it comes to the draft and where guys go. Do you think Kyler solidified himself as the top pick in the draft? 6 weeks ago, this is not what we were talking about.
Yeah, he very may well have. I saw him play live a couple times last year, and I thought in particular against Alabama when he played well in the second half, that to me showed competitiveness, overcoming adversity. I think Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield have answered the question, can a shorter quarterback, make it and be as productive as, they've been. My bigger question is, if you're Arizona, are you taking him? You just took Josh Rosen a year ago. You traded up, Chris, from 15 to 10. and you could be sitting there and you could get a pass rusher like a Nick Bosa and pair him with Chandler Jones, are you better off doing that and saying after 5 games, I'm going to give up on Josh Rosen?
If you do decide that you want Kyler, how much of it is, at that point, Josh Rosen is, you have to look at him as a sunk cost and you just get as much as you possibly can, or is part of your decision about whether or not you can take Kyler, even if you love him, about how much of a return can we get for Rosen? Meaning, let's say you love Kyler, but no one wants to give up more than a second-round pick for Rosen.
Right.
Does that change your decision on drafting the quarterback, or does it have to be, do we love Kyler, do we not, and then get the best deal for Rosen based on that?
Yeah, exactly. It starts with that. If you want to build your offense around Kyler Murray, again, we've seen it with Russell Wilson. We've seen it now with Baker Mayfield. You can do that. You know, the concern is going to be is he built to last? It's a big man's game. Can he, handle things and be sustainable from a physical standpoint? Again, I thought the Alabama game was important because we saw him play, better in the second half. And if you make that decision, Nick, and say, hey, Kyle's our guy, then you get the best deal you can with Rosen. But from a front office perspective, I'm not giving up on a guy. He played 5 games last year. He beat Green Bay on the road. And you got to get a chance to get Nick Bosa and a young quarterback. I like that pairing, better. But again, if you say Murray's your guy, then you cut your losses with Rosen and you move on.
I like the fact that you went to watch him play this year, because very seldom are we getting that type of perspective. When you were sitting there watching him, did you think you were watching a first-rounder? That's my first question.
Absolutely, because he has great short area elusiveness and quickness, and he has his arm talent. I agree with Joel's assessment. It's certainly underrated because he can make all the throws, Chris. Again, the one question you would have is, as a starting quarterback in the NFL, can he withstand the rigors of week in and week out?
Right, and you were doing the same thing when Russell Wilson came out. You mentioned Russell, what he's done. Baker Mayfield, what he's done. I know they've helped change the perception, but how much has the perception changed when you're sitting there watching a guy at 5'10"? We didn't know then. Is he 5'9"? Is he 5'10" in the Final Four in college football? How much was the perception there when you were watching Russell and he came out? And Snyder and the group there in Seattle said, man, if he was 2 inches taller, he had been a first-round pick. How much different is it now looking at Kyler, and how much the league and the optics have changed?
No question about it, because of those guys' success. And again, if you have a plan, if you're taking him with the first pick overall, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the GM, they'll all have to be on the same page. How can we put this player in a chance to be successful? How can we build an offense? And obviously a guy like Cliff Kingsbury, coming from Texas Tech, can certainly design an offense to put Kyle in the best chance to be successful.
I'll ask this to anyone here. What else at this point, now that the Combine and the Pro Day are behind us, what else does Kyler Murray have to prove leading up to the draft?
Like, do well in your individual workouts, right? Tell me, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. But I think at this point, it's hard to go forwards. It's just don't go backwards.
I disagree with that, Nick.
Okay.
If you're going to put all your eggs in a player's basket, you got to bring him in. You got to make sure that, hey, how's he process information? How's he deal with adversity? If there's a 3-game losing streak and he has to go face the media, how's he going to handle it? Have you talked to the equipment people? Have you talked to the trainer? All those things are critically important because he is the face of your franchise. And as we know in pro football, Chris, there's going to be a lot of adversity. So how he handles that is going to be critical.
Right, and what Mike's talking about is keep the process going. Nick makes a fair point as far as you're not going to drop. If they think you're number one, the obvious aspect, man, don't get in trouble. But he's not a person that has shown us, and he doesn't get credit for that. He doesn't get credit that all he has done is win. He doesn't get credit that he's a great leader. He doesn't get credit that he comes from a 2-parent home, from professional parents and everything. His dad had played at a high level. He doesn't get credit for those things. Doesn't get credit that he doesn't get in trouble. So right now, what he needs to do is learn, what Mike's saying, learn pro football. The organization that's in love with him, learn more about him. So it's kind of a meeting of a coming together. He needs to learn more about pro football. Work on his leadership skills, because it's different in leading high school teams to championships. I respect it. 42-0 in the state of Texas, much respect to it. It's great what he did, taking over from Baker Mayfield, hoisting that Heisman Trophy, battling Alabama after an awful first half. Much respect to it. But leading grown men, man, it's a sport in itself in the National Football League. And you're getting ready to be put in pressure situations on and off the field, continuing to grow that process.
And if we went back a year ago and we were talking about Baker Mayfield, and obviously John Dorsey and the Cleveland Browns deserve a great job, but there were more boxes for, they had to check, hey, he started at Texas Tech and he moved on. And same thing with Kyle Murray. Like, you have to drill down on that baseball question, Nick, because if you're going to make this guy the first pick of the draft, you have to know, like, we're building around this guy hopefully for the next 10, 15 years.
I want to ask one philosophical question about the draft before we move on. Because you talked about all the things that go into making a quarterback the first-round pick, much less first overall pick, face of your franchise. Ostensibly, they did all this stuff with Rosen. Right? Like, they talked to the equipment people.
That's right.
So that's one of the reasons why you traded multiple picks to move up to get him, why you'd be hesitant to move on from him. If they decide not to go with Kyler Murray at number 1 and stick with Josh Rosen, do you think in today's NFL, when there are elite quarterbacks available in the draft, you can get fair value at the number 1 overall pick without taking a quarterback? Meaning a team like Arizona, if they're not going to take a quarterback, is the only way to get the true value of that pick trading the pick to someone who wants the quarterback and getting a bunch of assets for it?
Well, yeah, that's certainly that's one way to do it. But also, if you feel like that number 1 pick can impact the game, and when you look at these edge rushers and Nick Bosa in particular, he can take over a game all by himself, and he can change that franchise as quickly as possibly a quarterback, arguably even faster, knowing that sometimes these quarterbacks take a year or two. Yeah, they take time. So, you know, again, if you believed in your process with Josh Rosen, I wouldn't give up on him. Now, if you get an incredible trade, like you mentioned, I think you got to listen to that.
But you'd be comfortable taking Nick Bosa number 1.
No question about it, because a pressure player is so valuable in today's game.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.